Alright everyone, hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you're new here, and I have about 20 minutes to film this video, so we need to talk about all of the books I read in February. Holy crap, did I read a lot. Very briefly, I will mention I did a reading vlog, and in that I read 2 books, one of them being Out on a Limb by Hannah Young. This is a contemporary romance. I gave this one 5 stars. And the other contemporary romance I read was Pucking Wild by Emily Rath. Didn't love this one as much. It's a 3.5 stars. If you want further thoughts and feelings on these 2 books, you can go check out that blog. As you can see from the thumbnail, I went a little hog wild on some manga. Briefly, I will talk about the 9 volumes of Sweat and Soap that I read. This is a contemporary romance manga, and the first 4 or 5 volumes of this series is like 4 or 4.5 stars, and then I started losing patience with some character development towards later volumes. I will finish. There are only 2 more left in this series, but it definitely goes downhill from here. This is a series about a woman who struggles with body odor as well as sweating, and a man who is obsessed with her smell. So if you can get past the premise, this is a fun series. However, I do think it does start to taper off, and the character growth really stalls after the first like 4 or 5 volumes. Other romances I read were another Emily Rath, Beautiful Things. This is a historical polyamorous romance, and I did not super like this. I love that some historicals can be really smutty, and I'm really appreciative of smutty historicals. However, I hated the polyamorous representation in here, and it was super toxic. So this was like a 3-star because I liked how smutty it was, but 2 out of the 3 men she is with can go choke. I also read Hookshot by Kennedy Ryan. This is the 3rd book in the Hoops series by her, and this one was a 3.5 star. How can I say this nicely and quickly? This is a 650 page romance novel for a 350 page story. This is kind of a regular romance, and so to me it did not need to be this long. There were just so many things that were so drawn out and for kind of no reason. This just felt like a normal couple getting together, and yes, there was some drama. Obviously plot stuff happens, but it really did not need to be this long. And also, I will spoil a little bit of the ending, so skip ahead to the next genre if you don't want to hear any spoilers. But there is a 3rd act car crash, and I hate that so much because it's so random and so dumb and so stupid and so contrived. I almost hate this worse than a 3rd act breakup, but that's again a personal preference thing. Let's turn to fantasy. First, we've got Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. This was a 3.5 star read. It was pretty good. This is the sequel to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which is like a cozy fantasy romance about fae, and the sequel just didn't have the same level of charm and found family that the first one did to me. I think it's a good sequel, but I was missing some of the found family elements. I did enjoy the additional characters though. Then we have A Master of Gin by P. Djeli Clark, which is a 3.75 out of 5 stars. Not quite a 4. I don't know why I'm being so particular, but I am. This is a steampunk historical fantasy about a paranormal investigator solving a murder in like 19-teens Cairo in an alternate history, and this was great. There were some slow pace bits in the middle. I don't think this author does pacing super duper well because I've read a bunch of other things by now, and I've seen a pattern. However, I did think this was fun and a fun fantasy. Speaking of P. Djeli Clark, I then read Black God's Drum by them, and I didn't like this one. This is a novella, and again, the pacing issues were present in this book, but to an nth degree. I thought this was pretty terrible in terms of its plotting. It's basically 75% of the book is a bunch of characters talking to each other, and then 25% action with a deus ex machina, literally a deus ex machina at the end, which I don't like. I still recommend Ring Shout by this author. That is like one of my favorite horror novellas of all time, but these other ones, like especially Black God's Drum, I really was disappointed in that, and Master of Jin was good, but not great for me. Then we have The Moth Keeper by Kay O'Neill, who is a graphic novel artist slash non-binary author, and I liked this. This is a 4-star fantasy for me. This is kind of coming of age desert fantasy with these characters that are kind of animalistic and they're kind of anthropomorphized a little bit. And this was cute. This is a cute coming of age story. I wish this author would do something in the adult sphere, but they do YA super, super well. Then we have The Will of the Many by James Islington, and everyone and their uncle is reading this book and loving it, and I, don't get me wrong, I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars, but I don't think it has the same level of love in my heart as some other 5-star fantasies for me personally. I think this is good. This is a Roman-esque inspired fantasy story about the heir to a kingdom that was colonized by this empire, and he is out for revenge. So he has to hide his identity and infiltrate the empire in this like magical school to rise to the ranks and kind of destroy the empire from within, which is like a formula typically I love. I do think this main character suffers from I'm the perfect main character syndrome. What is that? Mary Sue, or what's the boys version of that? A Luke Skywalker? Oops. But you know what I mean, like where the character's just kind of too perfect, and he has like anger problems and that's his flaw, and I was like, okay, so boys are allowed to have anger be their flaw. Like, I don't know, I didn't really appreciate that. I don't know. This one was pretty good. And I think I will continue. I will be honest with you, when I was reading this book, I was kind of skimming a little bit because it's a long one, and I've just been all over the place with my mental health. So if I were to listen to the audiobook and like really pay attention, maybe I would like this more, but as it stands, this is a 4-star read for me. Then we have Paladin's Faith, which is the 4th book in the Saints of Steel series. I had no idea this series was getting more installments. I am so excited because the 3rd book ends and we don't get all of the Paladin's stories. However, it felt like a good conclusion to the series. But I'm so happy that T. Kingfisher is continuing to tell the other Paladins stories. This is a cozy adjacent fantasy romance series following different Paladins whose god was murdered or died, I guess. They don't know if he was murdered or what happened to him. And in this one, we're following Marguerite, who is the best friend of the main character of the 1st book, and one of the Paladins named Shane, and I gave this 5 stars. I loved the political intrigue, the murder mystery elements, the fantasy elements, the romance was kind of fun, and I just love this series. I'm so glad this one picked up because the 3rd book in this series really disappoints me. It's really short, and I really think it suffers because of its length, because of that, in terms of the romantic development. But this one is a good length, and I think T. Kingfisher did a great job with this one, and I can't wait for more. Favorite read I read this month was actually a horror novel, and that is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride. The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chachki. Whoa. I'm trying to film this way too fast. This is a horror, fantasy, mythology kind of retelling. I don't know how much I want to talk about this one because I think even knowing what story this is based on could spoil things, but this is kind of a retelling, so it feels like a fairy tale retelling about a bridegroom who is never named. He's just the bridegroom who meets this woman named Indigo, and he's completely charmed by her, and he marries her, and she says, "You can't ask anything about my past." And of course, he starts digging into her past when they are called home to her family estate because her aunt is dying. And this is wonderful. The writing was great. I've read a young adult book by this author, hated it intensely, absolutely hated that book. But I'm glad I gave her adult novel a chance. This is pretty short and it gave me that ooky tummy feelings, and I honestly didn't see the twist coming, which makes me feel like a dum-dum, but it pulled it off and I'm super happy I read this one. And this is a pretty divisive one, so I don't know if this is a horror book I can like widely recommend to a broad audience, but if you like the same type of horror that I do, Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey, Tripping Arcadia, The Luminous Dead, Night Film, those types of horror books, I think you would like this one too. That's it. Those are the books I read in February. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video of mine very soon.